Are you going to be gifting preserves this year? Do you get in a pickle when you're making your decorative jam pot covers? Well, I've got the perfect solution for you. A really easy way to work out how much fabric you'll need for each of your jam pot covers. So if you're going small or perhaps large this year, every jam pot cover will be perfect. I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. I'm the florist that teaches. Normally my videos are about flower arranging hints and tips for the trade, but because of coronavirus I've been stuck indoors like you, so my channel is doing more craft related activities. These jam pot covers though, they do have a little bit of a floral flourish, and I'll show you how I added those decorations on. And if you'd like to know how I made this quince jelly, watch on right to the end of the video and I'll share the making process with you. To make your fabric jam pot covers, you'll need some fabric. So I'm going to be using some white calico fabric, but you'll see from the jam pot covers I've already made, I've got a variety of materials there, reds and greens, so they're really lovely and festive. The small red check fabric is actually one of my husband's old shirts, which I've cut up. You'll also need a pair of pinking shears, that'll save you having to hem your fabric, and a flexible dressmaker's tape measure. And if you don't have one of those to hand, a piece of string to do your measuring or something similar, and then some tiny elastic bands to hold your jam pot cover in place. And these are actually elastic bands that I've saved from supermarket bunches of flowers. I always think these jam pot covers look like little children at a nativity play with tea towels on their heads and a band round them, so they look like shepherds at the manger. As well as deciding what fabric you're going to use, you also need to decide what length overhang you need for the frill section around the edge of your jam pot. So here I'm deciding I want a 2 cm frill at the edge of mine, and literally all I do is take my tape measure and run it up and over the jam jar, making sure I've added in 2 cm at both sides. So this tiny jam pot cover here for my spice jar needs a circular disc 11 cm in diameter, and then all you need to do is to find something you can draw around which is about the same size. So I'm going through a number of small saucers I've got, and once you've found the size you want, if you've got lots of jam jars which are the same size, you can make a template and cut out like that. So I can't give you the exact size you'll need for your jam pot covers because it depends on the size of your individual jam jars. Whereas the jar I've used for my quince jelly is tiny, the standard or the more standard £1 jars of jam take a piece of fabric 14 cm in diameter. If your circle of fabric is too large, it'll just swamp your jars and just look too large. So it's really quite important for a really finished and polished look not to have too much of an overhang. I'm going to take my saucer as my template and a pencil and draw direct onto my fabric. I'm only doing this as a one-off, but if I was going to make the covers for all my jars, if they're all the same size, I would do this on a piece of paper and pin it to the fabric, and then I could easily cut out lots and lots of the circles. And I like to use pinking shears for this. So first of all, I just cut roughly around the edge of the fabric, take away the excess and fold that up for another project, and then go around and cut really neatly around the edge of the fabric. And you could leave your fabric like this, or if you wanted to add extra decorations, especially if you're using plain fabric like this, you could do a running stitch with some red thread or something like that and really make your jam pot covers individual. Once you've cut out your circle of fabric, that's job done, and you'll need to position it in place and secure it with the elastic band. And sometimes this can be quite tricky, especially when you're covering really quite small jars. You need to make sure that you even out the frill all the way around, so you may need to do a little bit of tweaking and fluting around the edges in order that your cover is equally gathered around the edges of your jam pot. And then the creative part starts, and you can decide how you would like to decorate each of your jam pot covers. And here I've got a tiny sprig of artificial Christmas tree pine and some cinnamon sticks and some beech nut husks, and I'm going to put those onto the jar and fix them in place with a piece of raffia and finish off with a little raffia bow. I start by hot gluing the raffia husk along the length of its little stem and then sliding that up between the needles of the artificial piece of pine. It'll only take a few seconds to dry, but you may need to hold it in place, so just be really careful that you don't burn your fingers. And then I'm going to add in some cinnamon sticks, or a piece of cinnamon stick, and I'm breaking it down in half because my piece of greenery is really tiny. I don't want it to be overwhelmed by a really chunky piece of cinnamon, so I do exactly the same thing, a dot of hot glue, and then position it where it looks visually pleasing. And this is using the same skills you would use to make a little flower arrangement. So you're deciding where the focal area is going to be, which for me is my little beech nut husk, and then you're adding the decorative details around that, so you've got a pleasing overall look. I'm going to finish off a little decorative detail by adding a little raffia bow. So I take my piece of raffia, make 2 loops and then tie them together, and then adjust the loops and the tails. So having got my rough bow, I pull on the tails to make the loops smaller, and then pull the loops sharply to tighten the knot, and just adjust a few times, making sure I've got a bow that looks pleasing to the eye but is also firmly secured. And when I'm happy with that, I'll cut the tails down to length and then hot glue that in place. Because this particular jam pot is quite small, making this decorative details a little bit fiddly because it needs to be small to be in scale with the size of the pot. But the larger your jam pot, the bigger your little decorative flourish will be, and you may find it easier to make. The next thing I need to do is to tie that little decorative detail onto the pot, and I'm going to use raffia to do this. This is a 2-step process. First of all, I have to tie my raffia onto my little decorative flourish, and then tie that onto the jam pot and fastening it in place, and really wanting to take your raffia backwards and forwards on the jam pot to hide your elastic band, and then tie a knot and hide it underneath a little bit of pine so you haven't got little knots and fixings all over the place. And there's my first jam pot cover finished. 1 down, 16 more to go. If you'd like to see how I made my quince jelly, carry on watching till the end of the video. I'm using these windfalls to make my quince jelly, so I'll need to chop off the bits that are bruised and starting to decay. If you're not familiar with quince, they look a little bit like pears, but they're really solid. As I'm going to be making a jelly out of them, I don't need to peel them or core them. I'm just going to roughly slice them, take out the bad bits, and then put them in my pan and boil them down until they're soft. I ended up with about £1 pound of quince, and I put them in a saucepan with a pint of water, brought them to the boil and simmered them gently until the fruit had gone soft. After about 5 minutes simmering, I tested my fruit. It was nice and soft, so I used my potato masher to mash the fruit into a pulp. I always find this next bit a tiny bit tricky. You need to be able to transfer the pulped fruit into a jelly bag. So the way I do this is to take a really large saucepan, put a colander inside, line that with a piece of muslin, and then tip the fruit into the muslin, scraping out as much of the juice and the pulp as possible. I then tie the opposite corners of the muslin together as securely as possible, and I'm going to suspend my fruit bag over the large saucepan underneath by running the handle of a wooden spoon underneath the knots, and then suspending the spoon on the rim of the saucepan. You just need to make sure that your jelly bag is actually suspended and not sitting on the bottom of your pan. I like to leave my jelly bag like this overnight in order that the liquid can drip through of its own accord. You're advised when you're making jelly not to wring the bag out, otherwise you'll end up with a cloudy jelly rather than one that's lovely and clear. You can just see it here, drip, drip, dripping really slowly through the muslin. So I've come back the following morning and I'm taking my jelly bag out of my saucepan and putting that off to one side, and then I'll be pouring the liquid into a measuring jug, and for every pint of liquid I've got I'm going to add £1 pound of sugar. And it was at this point it suddenly dawned on me I wasn't going to be making very much jelly at all. My £1 pound of fruit and 1 pint of water resulted in about 1/4 pint of juice, so I only needed to add 4 ounces of sugar.
I then added my sugar to my pan and set it on a very gentle heat until the sugar had dissolved, and once it was dissolved I turned up the heat and let my jelly come to a boil, and then set my timer for about 5 minutes so I could test it to see whether the setting point had been reached. I've taken my jelly pan off the heat and put a teaspoon of the liquid onto my cold saucer, and then run the back of a teaspoon through to see whether I think it's getting a ridge across the top. I always find this bit really difficult to judge when setting point is, but here it's sort of holding its own, and I've decided that once the jam is really cooled, that will be a great setting point, not too runny and not too stiff. If you think your jelly is too runny at this point, all you need to do is return your pan back to the heat and set your timer again, perhaps going in 1 minute intervals. The next thing I do is to transfer my jelly into a jug, and I find that just makes it easier for pouring into the jars. The jars have been in the oven on a low temperature, sterilising and just bringing them up to heat in order that they don't crack when I pour the hot liquid into them. I've wrapped my jar into a tea towel so I don't burn myself, and then simply fill to the top. So bear in mind that the jelly, when it's cooled, will shrink a little bit, so I tend to sort of overfill in order that it shrinks back a little bit and probably sits cold about 1/2 centimetre from the top of the jar. So apart from doing the washing up, I'm nearly finished here. I'm just going to tighten on the jam jar lids, taking care I don't burn myself because I've sterilised these as well, so they are quite hot. And when I've done that, I'll set them down to cool and then add a label and start gifting them to my friends and family. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to leave me a comment and let me know what jams you've been making this year.